Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all fit and well. Or should I say, bonjour tout le monde. Ça va? Où est le singe? Le singe est de l'arbre. No, that's it. That's all the French I have. Well, I've got a bit more, but I'm saving that for dinner in Paris later tonight. So please don't forget, there is no show tomorrow. There is no show on Friday. Anyone sending me a WhatsApp message at 10 a.m. tomorrow asking where I am will be severely reprimanded. And they may even have their Breakfast Show licenses revoked. And speaking of licenses, see what I did there? These transitions don't write themselves, you know. Let me try that again. I have actually dropped a new article today, and it is on the subject of demolition licensing, or the lack thereof. If you'd like to read that, you can do so using the link that I've just put in the chat. I thought I'd set it to be behind a paid firewall. I've looked at it this morning. Doesn't appear to be. So, but either way, if you've not been to Demolition Insider before, you can get a free trial. If you have been there before and you're a paid, just go and have a look. That's probably the easiest. Incidentally, there's been several very lively debates taking place on our WhatsApp group this morning. There's one been going on about competence cards. That seems to be like an ongoing thing. Good morning, Steve Williamson, by the way. He is responsible for one of the things I'm about to mention. But the one that really caught my attention was the debate which Steve started that relates to so-called social media influencers giving strictly positive only reviews of machines because they are being paid to do so. I am pushed for time today, but I would like to have a chat about that in the show, or after the show, rather. And one final thing. The question of the day on Monday is going to be a little bit different, and it will require you to give it a bit more thought. So I'm going to tell you right now what it is so you have time to prepare. On Monday, I'd like each of you, our regulars, our Steve and Chris and Jim and Andy and Gary and Dan and Peter, all of our regulars, I'd like you to tell me something about you that we probably don't already know. And this was actually prompted by Peter McKenna, who I haven't seen in the chat just yet. I've known him for about 3 years now. We've met face to face. We've spoken on the phone. We've spoken on WhatsApp and all of those kind of things. I'm just going to say, yes, Ken, you were included as well. But thank you very much indeed. I've known Peter for about 3 years. Last weekend, he dropped into conversation, casual as you like, that he owns snakes. Yes, he owns snakes. Who knew? So please don't jump the gun. Don't answer this one until Monday, but please give it some thought. What is a fact about you that we probably don't know? So put your thinking caps on. There's a whole heap of things about me that you don't know. Some of them are going to stay that way. Now, without further ado, and for the final time this week, again, no show tomorrow, no show on Friday. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, the real question of today, not the one for Monday, and get this show on the road. Yes, it is Wednesday, the 17th of January, 2024. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, the new compact telehandlers from Merlo. Are they hot or are they not? Komatsu's hybrid excavator, an alternative fuel solution that is available right here, right now. We're in the US for a spot of church demolition, which is questionable, I guess, and how a UK demolition company made the switch to OilQuick. Plus, we're going to show you a handler that you will never tire of. That will make a whole lot more sense when we get to it. But first, let us peer back through the mist of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. And I have a button that I need to press, which is this one. On this day in 1912, Captain Scott arrived at the South Pole 1 month after an expedition led by Roald Amundsen had achieved the same feat. It's a little known fact that when Scott arrived, he found a note saying, "What kept you?" In 1945, long overdue, the evacuation of Auschwitz began. In 1978, the Sex Pistols broke up. Kind of. Singer Johnny Rotten famously said to the audience at the end of their final gig, "Ever feel like you've been cheated?" One of the great closing lines of any gig, in my opinion. In 1998, former President Bill Clinton was told that he faced sexual harassment charges from one Paula Jones. And in 2017, the search for flight MH370 that disappeared over the Indian Ocean was called off. Now, before we get to the real meat of the show, I'm going to very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yes, our question of the day is precisely that. Who was your first celebrity crush? Now, I realise this is going to reveal your age to a degree. I will tell you, the first celebrity crush that I went public with, posters on the wall and all that kind of thing, was unquestionably Debbie Harry. And to this day, Debbie Harry. Seeing her sing Denis Denis on Top of the Pops was a life-changing moment for me. But I digress. The truth is, my first real celebrity crush was a lady called Sally Geeson. She played the daughter of Sid James in the show Bless This House way back in the 1970s. She also did a couple of Carry On films, if I remember correctly. But what about you? Let us know in the chat. I don't know if she's actually commented yet. My wife's first celebrity crush was Terry Hall from The Specials. I'm a Specials fan, but you have to say Terry Hall wasn't much to look at. So, yes, I'm sure she will comment on that at some point. And I'm going to just quickly press the button. And I want to say good morning. Jim Turner has just arrived. Good morning to you, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Right, with all of that out of the way, let's get things started, shall we? And let's start with this. Just to prove how well I know my wife, she has done exactly what I said she would. There you are. Question of the day, Terry Hall. Terry Hall. How could I possibly compete with miserable old Terry Hall? God rest him, should I say. Now, it's time to decide once again. I'd like you to run a rule over these machines that I'm about to show you and decide whether you believe them to be hot or not. You might recall that we did actually bring you a preview of the new telehandler models from Merlo just a week or two ago, if I remember rightly. Bear with me a second. There's something going weird over on Instagram. Yes, we did actually bring you a bit of a sneak preview of the Merlo telehandlers. Sorry, been thrown completely. But it's now time to take a closer look. So take a look at this and please decide, do you believe these new telehandlers from Merlo, are they hot or are they not? So, people, I need you to decide whether that was hot or whether it was not. Anybody over on Instagram, you can join in as well. Please just type the word hot or not if you believe the Merlo machines to be hot. Please let us know if you believe them to not be hot. Then let us know that as well. We can't, well, in actual fact, we've just got a couple of deciding votes because, once again, I bring you what I believe to be the hottest machines in the construction equipment firmament, lay them out before you like a smorgasbord. And Ken Hatcher, 4 times now, 4 times on the bounce, he has said, no, not hot. I'm unconvinced, he says. But however, there are some hot votes, which I think is going to rule the day. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, they are so hot, my extremities are sweating like Niagara Falls, like the Merlo, he says. He also likes the music. Steve Williamson says you can't beat a JCB telehandler, and he also says, I'm sure that Merlo are better now, but the one I had many years ago caught fire while he was in it. Yeah, not great wiring issue, apparently. Gary Muirhead, I think, has tipped the balance. Hot. I can't actually read that. Bear with me. I'm going to put my other glasses on. I had them with SSE, the best telehandler on the market for lifting a 3-ton cable drum. Did not know that. Steve Williamson comes back and says, hot, but in the wrong way. Yes, Ken, really, why? What is the problem? Chris Ford is kind of erring towards our friend Ken. Lukewarm, he says. What is question of the day? Says Peter McKenna. I'm going to post it again right now, but I can tell you, Peter, it is, who was your first celebrity crush? That's what we'd like to know. I've already confessed that mine was Sally Geeson from Bless This House, followed quickly and much more long-lasting by Debbie Harry from Blondie. But yeah, love to hear yours. Ken, you need to sit down in front of a long mirror and take a serious talk with yourself, says Gary Muirhead. I'm inclined to agree with that. Jim Turner, again, tipping the balance. Hot, never heard any complaints about the Merlos I've worked alongside. I think we are going to agree amongst ourselves that these are hot. Never mind what Ken says. I'm with him on most things, but I'm not with him on this. I think we're going to declare those to be hot. So they will be going into the pot for our, it's going to be a big pot, our end of year product of the year review. So please keep that in mind. I'll be announcing the date of that sometime around about November. You've got a while to wait. Let me get that comment off the screen very quickly. And I do need to point this out because my wife reminds me of this an awful lot. My first official, posters on the wall type thing, Debbie Harry from Blondie. To this day, even though she is way past her sell-by date, Debbie Harry remains my ultimate female crush. No question about it. But as my wife loves to point out, she was the same age as my mum. Same age as my mum. And there was me, 12, 13 years old, lusting after somebody the same age as my mum. Yeah. Thank you for that, Ruth. For reminding me. I'm going to say a very quick good morning because I've just seen them going through the chat. McClevey Demolition over on Instagram. Good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now let's crack on because I've got lots more to get through and I have a train to catch. Don't forget, off to Paris today. Won't bore you with the details, but I won't be here tomorrow and I won't be here on Friday. So having got that out of the way, here's this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Where are we? Yes, in the battle for alternative fuel supremacy. I'm starting to think that Komatsu is taking the role of Switzerland. Some companies are shouting about electric, some are shouting about hydrogen, and some apparently believe that diesel will be around forever. And there's Komatsu, tucked over in the corner, keeping its head down, not getting drawn into all of this nonsense. And they are still making their hybrid excavators better and better with each new iteration. Take a look. Yeah, I had a quick spin in the first generation Komatsu hybrid excavator many, many moons ago. Mightily impressed back then. So, my supplemental question of the day is: have you operated a hybrid machine? And if so, what do you think? But the Komatsu machines do seem to be getting better and better with each new generation. Now, I don't like the way that the chat is working out today. I'm just going to say, for the stating for the record, Gary Muirhead has said that maybe I prefer blondes. You know, given my love of Debbie Harry and Marilyn Monroe and such. And here comes my wife reminding me, or reminding Gary and me, of precisely. I actually had a conversation with my grandfather when I was about, I don't know, 12 years old, 13 years old. And he said, "Who are you going to marry?" I said, "I don't know who I'm going to marry, but it will be a long legged blonde." And here comes my wife reminding me of that. He actually wanted a long legged blonde, but what I ended up with was a 4'11" dark haired harridan of a woman. Harridan, I say. Yes. And she reminds me of this all the time. I'm also going to throw back to let's have a look. Where is Dan Cullen says, you know, when I was referring to Debbie Harry being the same age as my mum, Mark, the older the fiddle, the sweeter the tune. Peter McKenna says older women can teach you a thing or two. I know that more than most. Maybe that's the thing you should be telling us on Monday when we find out something that we don't already know about you. And Steve Williamson, Steve, you can stop packing your bag. Paris, have I got the dates wrong for Intermat? No, you're okay. This is pre-Intermat. And for those of you that haven't been paying attention, the pre-Intermat, there is a pre-Bauma as well, and I think there's a pre-Con Expo, but I never go to that one. So basically, they gather together an awful lot of the exhibitors a couple of months in advance, and those exhibitors tell us weirdos in the press what they are likely to have on show in a couple of months' time. So that's the plan. We're due to interview one of the directors of the organisers while we're there, but the plan basically is to go and meet up with, you know, the representatives of the various exhibitors to find out what they are likely to have on show in April. And something that's occurred to me, and I am planning to write about this, and I'm not going to dwell on it for too long. But one of the things that's occurred to me, I don't know if anybody knows, but the last Intermat exhibition was actually in 2018. It was, yeah, 2018? 2018. And it was very good. Intermat traditionally has always been a very French show, not surprisingly, given it's in France. But the last one, 2018, I was there, Fred was there, and it had really taken on a real international flavour. Then, because of COVID and lockdown and all of the stuff that went with it, we didn't do the one that was due to take place in that would have been 2021. So it would be 6 years, and it set me thinking. I may be wrong, but I could check my notes, but it just set me thinking. In 2018, there may have been one or two electric machines there, but I don't remember seeing any. Hydrogen wasn't even on the menu. At the time, telematics and that kind of thing was very much the stuff of mining and quarrying and major civil engineering projects. In the space of 6 years, the entire landscape of the industry has changed. I'm looking to explore that when I'm in France, so keep an eye out for that. Let's have a look. Is there anything else I need to do right now? I probably no. I think I tell you what, we're going to crack on because as I say, I do have a deadline to meet today. So let me crack on. And in order to crack on, I need to play this first. Gary, there is no question. I am most definitely punching above my weight. No question about it. I couldn't agree with you more. Dan Cullers asked Steve Williamson, "Are you going to Scott Plant?" No, apparently. He used, I think, Ed. This is how maps work out. So Ed Butler is going to travel from Wales to Scotland to do Scott Plant with Kinsoffer. And at the same time, Steve is going to travel from Scotland to Paris to do Intermat with Kinsoffer. I don't know. Listen, I don't like to pry, but that's exactly what is going to be happening. Mark, how many shows are you on this year in the UK? Definitely one. Definitely plan to be at Hillhead. Can't make Scott Plant because I too will be in Paris. I did kick around the idea of going to the executive hire show, but it's really right at the very bottom end of the stuff that we cover. So I'm not entirely sure about that. So yeah, definitely Hillhead. Not sure about anything else. Dan Cullen says Monday will be a good day to talk about the process and training cards. Yeah, more than happy to do that. And Steve Williamson has just said, word is that Kinsoffer are not at Scott Plant this year. They will be sadly missed, which I guess leaves Ed Butler to twiddle his thumbs a little bit. Who knows? Now, it's been a while since we last featured OilQuick on this here show, which is weird because, in my humble opinion, the coupler system that they offer has made the biggest single contribution to the demolition industry in decades. So, having not featured them for a while, I'm going to set that straight.
Yeah, my name's Ian Musto. I'm the director of HCD Demolitions from Hereford. We are based in Hereford, but this job where we are filming on is in Coventry. But we work all over the UK carrying out small and major demolition jobs, including remediation works and all that sort of groundworks as well. Basically, we converted to OilQuick back in 2019. We purchased two units. Once you purchase them, you don't really look back, if you understand. You know, with the old conventional ways, before you could look at a big job or small job, you say, I want to send 3 machines here. What we're finding now is we are sending, say, 2 machines here. We can send the 2 machines here for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, and we send a 3rd machine here just to finish off, you know, on helping out with the crushing and whatever, if you understand. So it's definitely helped costs on a job, and with the way that the OilQuicks, you can change from attachment to bucket and various attachments in a matter of a minute. You know what I mean? It just makes the job so much easier for the operator. You're using the right tool for the right job. You know what I mean? You're not pulling and tearing at buildings with selector grabs. You can shear the building down. You can then place the materials out in a stockpile. You can. If a lorry comes in at the end of the day, it's not long before you can drop attachment off, put the grab on, load the lorry up with waste. It's beneficial all round it is for us, you know.
My apologies. Just trying to do something over on Instagram. That's why I've got the wrong glasses on. Bear with me. I'll be back with you in just a second. Yes, as I said, I am a huge fan of the OilQuick system. It really has fundamentally changed the way in which demolition is done here in the UK and increasingly in the US. When we were at ConExpo, I'm sure Steve Williamson will back me up on this. Last time I was at ConExpo, like when was it? 2020. Not much in the way of quick couplers there at all. Fast forward 3 years. Lots and lots of quick couplers there. I'm going to say good morning to Kappa Group over on Instagram, who are with us again. And that's the second time they've been joined us as well. And Jake Paddy, #1 over on Instagram as well. I'm going to say good morning to you. My apologies for being distracted, but I've got lots and lots going on. I've got a WhatsApp chat going on. I've got a LinkedIn chat going on. Instagram is going absolutely mental. So my apologies. Steve Williamson says, OilQuick is hot, hands down, the best of all quick couplers. There's a bit of me that is inclined to agree with that. And there's Dan Cullen saying, welcome to Kappa Group as well. Dan also says, great hitch, but with their problems with age and seals, the one here has seal issues. Don't hear that very often about all things OilQuick. But yeah, and Jake Paddy has just said, good morning. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you as well. Right, it is time to move on because we need to do this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I make no secret of the fact that I have no belief whatsoever in God or any form of higher power. Even so, I would normally draw the line at desecration of holy ground. However, when a church demolition looks and sounds as good as this one, I'm going to make an exception. Going to throw over to the chat. Chris Ford says, not a fence or a high-vis jacket in sight. Wonder how many got hurt. They do things differently in America. Jim Turner says, not a bad tune, bit tame for me, was waiting for the drop, but sound enough. We aim to please. My apologies if we've fallen slightly short of your expectations there, Jim. I'll do better next week, I promise. I'm going to come back to all things OilQuick and seals related, just going back to that church demolition. May God, if there is such a thing, may God forgive them their trespasses. We're going to play the last film in just a moment, so stick around.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
At the top of the show, we showed you some new telehandlers doing regular telehandler things. In our final and very short film of today, we're going to show you a telehandler doing irregular telehandler things. Yeah, don't think I'd ever tire of watching that. Never mind. That's going to wrap up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to very quickly remind you, I need to be out of here by 11. So we've got 26 and a half minutes. So with that being said, I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. I may have to save some of the chat until Monday. I promise I will come back to it. But if you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Don't forget, not here tomorrow, not here on Friday. But if you do have the time and the inclination, then do please stick around, because the Craic will be back immediately after this. Good morning, all. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I have to say, what a morning, eh? The old WhatsApp group really came into its own this morning, and thanks for several people: Steve Williamson, Nigel Williams, Dan Cullen, various other people taking part in the chat over there. One of the things that I don't do anywhere near often enough is record voice messages. I should do it more, because frankly it's a lot easier than typing, and you can do it on the go and that kind of thing. Some of the chat that's been going on over there, I wish the grand fromages of the industry were paying attention, because there's been some really, really good stuff over there. We will come back to it, I promise. And just so you know, Steve, I've taken a note of what you've said about all things social media influencers. I have here, I'm not going to let you read it, but I have here that I've been making notes about that. I'm going to write an article, and I've already got a working title in mind, and it's called The Credibility Gap. Long and short, and if you're part of our WhatsApp group, I'm sure you've already seen or heard it. Long and the short of it is, Steve has been questioning the viability and overall the credibility of social media influencers who climb on one machine 1 week and tell you it is the greatest machine they have ever driven, and then somebody else's check clears and they tell you, no, this is the greatest machine. And one other thing that I will tell you, bearing in mind these are the circles within which I move, I can tell you a lot of these in-depth reviews are based on 10-15 minutes behind the controls and the payment of some money. It's not fake news, it is just not credible. And I do think the industry as a whole does need to get its head around what is credible and what is not. And just to be absolutely clear, somebody like an Ollie Guns, Ollie by and large reviews equipment that he has bought and paid for with his own money. If he says it's good, it probably is. If he says it's bad, it probably is. But if somebody is being paid to tell you how good a machine it is, you got to question it. And I've got this in my notes. I realise not everybody on the show here is into football, but to draw you an analogy, right? So the English Premier League is 20 teams. Now, I'm a big West Ham supporter, but even with my hand on heart, I could not look you in the eye and tell you that West Ham are the best team in the world. There are two teams at the top of the English Premier League, Man City and Liverpool, who almost certainly are, and the same applies with cars. You know, I could sit here and tell you that Ford makes the best car in the history of the world. You would know that wasn't right. If I were to tell you that Ed Sheeran was the world's greatest guitarist, you would know I was lying. That's what we were expected to believe through social media influencers. I am going to write that article, possibly even on the train today, but keep an eye out for that. So I'm going to rattle through the hellos and the happy hump days and stuff. There's Dan Cullen. Morning, Dan. There's Gary Muirhead. Good morning to you as well, sir. Ken Hatcher. Chilly again down in Wales. Good morning to you. Andy Darvell is here as well. Dan Cullen, how the bejesus are you all today in the cold? Chris Falk, good morning, troops. All ready for parade? Well, apparently they were, because they were all here. Steve Williamson, always great to have Steve on the show. Chris Ford, not had time to read the article yet. The phone's been busy. Yeah, I've got an article. Just go and look for Demolition Insider. It's about the licensing of the demolition industry, whether that should be the case or not. And just to point out, I've not stated it in the article, but many countries, including places like America and Australia, their demolition contractors are licensed. And the reason I'm questioning why they should be licensed is we have no ultimate sanction. If a demolition company is prosecuted for financial irregularity, corporate manslaughter, or fly tipping, asbestos mishandling, all of those things, they get a slap on the wrist. They may get a hefty fine. They may even end up with certain members of their staff doing jail time. But there's nothing to stop the company cracking on. And that applies also to repeat offenders. So even repeat offenders that have been found wanting in various aspects, there is no ultimate sanction. Whereas if you had a license, which is what I'm advocating, you would have the ability to revoke that license, be it temporarily or even permanently, should they be that bad. That's the argument. Go and take a look. I'm not going to bore you with it any longer. Our question of the day was quite simply, who was your first celebrity crush? Sally Geeson for me. I make no excuse for that. I'm that old. I do remember Bless This House. Ken Hatcher, who is a mere child by comparison, says Makepeace. Dempsey and Makepeace. Do you remember Dempsey and Makepeace? Yeah, Makepeace. I can, on the tip of my tongue, I almost had, was she Frances Barber? Frances Barber, that rings a bell. I don't know. I think these influencers should not be allowed to do the things they do. They're not machines being paid to give 100% yes to the machines, and that is the point. And I mean, good luck to them. And listen, we get paid to work with manufacturers. I make no bones about it. We do tell you when we're doing that, and make no bones about it. I'll tell you now, we are being paid to go to this pre-internet thing. And to be perfectly honest, I'd like to say positive things about Intermat, because I do believe that we do need a show between Bauma and ConExpo. I do think that the French market is big enough to justify that. And I also think that we need another international show, particularly one that's this close. Plant Works will never be to that scale. Whereas, and I realise it's not that easy to get time off work and stuff. But Paris, I will be in Paris. Once I've jumped on my train at St Pancras, I will be in Paris in 2.5 hours. It takes me longer than that to get to Birmingham. So with the advent of Intermat, or the return of Intermat, we actually have a show, a truly international show that is just 2.5 hours away. I think that's a good thing. I will be saying that, but make no bones about it. I am being paid to be there. The problem I have, and the problem that Steve has, is where you've got people that just literally take the money and then they say positive things. And even setting aside the money, how can you say positive things about a machine that you've only driven for 10 or 15 minutes? You all know, a lot of you guys spend your time on machines. You might be very pleased. Your new excavator arrives. It's, oh, look at me. I've got the new excavator. It smells lovely in here. Look at the lovely clean cab. Isn't it fantastic? And a week down the line, I've got a couple of really funny rattles here. What's that all about? And I've got leaks. And this chair is bastard uncomfortable. You only get to feel that. You only get to experience that when you've been on that machine for a few weeks. The industry, not the influencers. The influencers will crack on and they will do their own thing. They will not be regulated. They will continue to spout this sort of stuff. And good luck to them. The industry itself, however, needs to be able to discern between that and a real review. And that, again, it's one of the reasons that I never do reviews. I am not equipped. I've been writing about Plant for 35 years. I'm a terrible operator, and at most, I think the longest I've ever spent on a machine was when I actually learned to drive a backhoe loader. I had 4 days on a backhoe loader up at JCB many moons ago, like 34 years ago or thereabouts. But by and large, since then, I'm on a machine, I don't know, once a month for about 10-15 minutes, if I'm lucky. Who am I? Who am I to review that? It just makes no sense. Now, somebody said, question of the day, Sam Fox, do I need to say any more? It's like 2 bald convicts trying to break out of jail. I don't know if I've told you this story before, and I hate to go off at tangents, particularly when I'm pressed for time. But my good lady wife has picked me up from the airport once in 30, nearly 40 years of being together and married and stuff. She's picked me up once. And who did I come through the gates with? Sam Fox. Me and Sam Fox having a right old chinwag we were. And who stood there? My wife and my dad. However, what I would say, well, I think we subsequently learned that Sam Fox what's the expression? Bats for the other side now. But also, even my wife had to admit, no, I've got to say, she really is gorgeous. And I realise Sam Fox is famous for two very important things, but facially, back in the day, an absolute stunner. Really was. I've seen her up close. Take my word for it. Jim Turner says, good morning to you as well. There's my wife saying Terry Hall. If anybody remembers what Terry Hall looked like, you'd start to question my wife's sanity. Dan Cullen says, celebrity crush was between Jennifer Lopez and I don't know who the other one was. Jennifer Lopez. Fair play. Jim Turner says, Floella Benjamin when I was a nipper and she was on Play School. Floella Benjamin. Why not? Why not indeed? Steve Williamson refers back to the day his Merlo caught fire. Peter McKenna back under the hospital again. Just having a few tests done at the hospital. Will be floating in and out. Hope everyone has a good day. Well, hope your day improves enormously. Peter. Ken Hatcher. Negative Nancy that he is. Not impressed by the Merlos whatsoever. Steve Williamson says, farmer spec. There was a few construction ones in there as well, I think. Chris Ford. Now, here's a weird thing. We've already had, who did we have? Jim Turner talking about the fact that he had the HOTS, the juvenile HOTS for Floella Benjamin on children's TV. Fast forward to Chris Ford. Valerie Singleton. Before I was old enough to beat the meat, he says. Floella Benjamin and Valerie Singleton. Children's TV, a hotbed, should I say, of prepubescent hotties, apparently. Let's have a look. I'm going to rattle through all of that. We've done all of those, I think. I reminded Peter McKenna of the question of the day. Let's have a look. I think he did actually come back. And there's my wife reminding me that Debbie Harry is as old as my mum. Don't care. Peter McKenna says nuclear batteries could be coming to a site near you. It's taken long enough to get us this far with hydrogen. I'm not going to hold my breath. Let's have a look. Steve Williamson has just pointed out that the sprockets are on the wrong way round on the Komatsu. I didn't like to say. This show's been going for nearly 4 years, and you've said the sprockets are in the wrong way, in the wrong orientation, virtually every day for all of that 4 years. You crack on, Ken. We don't have a problem with that. There's Chris Ford saying, I read an article on nuclear batteries, said they last 50 years before recharging. Nothing said about disposal. No, I'm sure there wasn't. Blast them into space. That's the way forward. Let's have a look. Chris Ford says, they say the best things come in small packages. My wife would tell me that on a regular basis. And there's Gary saying, I think Mark is punching above his weight. My wife agrees, and frankly, so do I. Let's have a look. Lots of talk about Scott Plant. No, as I say, I am definitely doing Hillhead. Up in the air about the Exec Hire show because it is a bit small for our audience. But if I'm passing by and I've got the time, I may well do it. We'll keep an eye on that. There's my wife. Full of praise, as always. Gary Muirhead. I love ugly things. Hence, Terry Hall. Thanks, mate. Thanks, Ruth. I really do appreciate that enormously. There's Steve Williamson in praise of OilQuick. I tell you what, I'm going to switch my glasses out because this one's a bit longer. Bear with me 1 second. Mick Norton says, enjoyed your licensing piece. Thank you, Mick. Regarding the demolition sector, however, there are bigger fish to fry within those with responsibilities for computer technology and the total paucity of any guarantee of individual competence for these guys. Search engine optimization, computer programming, and more besides, none of which need a formal declaration of competence as to their abilities. Which, isn't that a bizarre thing? For those of you that haven't read the article and have no intention of doing so, the distinction that I drew was I could go out into my kitchen right now and make a bacon sandwich, and it would be good. I make a good bacon sandwich. I could then make a bacon sandwich for all of my children, and that would be fine. And I could make one for my wife, even when she's on a diet, and that would be fine as well. I could even make them for my neighbours. I could invite people from far and wide to enjoy my bacon sandwiches. The moment I put a price tag on those, I need a license. And in order to get that license, I would need a visit from the local authority, health and safety inspector. And yet Demolition, with the known risks that Demolition has, just crack on. Just crack on. I can do whatever I damn well please. So long as I've got a digger and a client with a keen sense of adventure, I can do whatever I damn well please. There was a mention of seal issues on OilQuick. Steve Williamson says, a seal issues is operator error. You need to look after your hitch. It changes the way you change attachments like any other ordinary hitch. I changed attachments over 200 times a day at Balmer for 7 days. Maybe a tablespoon of oil that leaked the whole time. 200 times a day. That's probably putting it to the test. He goes on to say seals. Once in a while, you need to clean the seals. Common sense. Need to operate an OilQuick hitch. Yeah, absolutely right. I know Chris Ford, I did mention this earlier, said no fencing, no high-vis jackets. But it was a church, and maybe divine intervention looked after those that were doing the job. If money was no object, I'd like one of those, or love one of those in the yard. I think that's the Manny telehandler. Mick Norton says, never used a Manny telehandler and like the look of their versatility. However, what's installed to warn the operator audibly and visually of any lateral instability? I was thinking the other day, I just very, very quickly, I won't bore you with the details. I started to use these index cards to keep tabs on things. So I mentioned back end of last year, I've had lots of good ideas for articles, but they've come and they've gone, and I've not had a chance to see them through. So I'm using these index tabs to keep a handle on ideas and stuff that's going on. But it occurred to me the other night, it would be nice to have an index card for each of you guys actually laid out on my desk. You know, so I've got your dates of birth, so I can say happy birthday to you. But I would know your likes and your dislikes, whereabouts in the world or the country you were located and stuff like that. But some of it is kind of automatic. Like, I think Gary Muirhead and the Steel Wrist logo pops into my head. I think Ken Hatcher, and I think sprockets, and I think Mick Norton, and I think lateral instability. Not him. I'm sure his lateral stability is absolutely fine, but I know he has not just a bee, but quite possibly a queen bee in a very, very big bonnet over lateral instability on telescopic handlers. Mick Norton says social media influences in the construction sector rarely bite the hands that feeds them, and that is exactly the point. And I'm sure I've said this before, but if I have, forgive me. I attended a Porsche day. I was I don't know why, but I was invited to a Porsche day, Silverstone, I think it was. And I went along, took Fred with me, and we took spins in the cars. We did like the skid pan, and we did racing and you know, sort of drag racing, all the very, very, very hottest Porsche cars that were there. There was a young guy there who was waiting to go on the skid pan with a driver. And he stood with his mobile phone like this, and he really, really enthusiastically and loudly said, "That was the most incredible experience of my life. I cannot believe the acceleration. The power of that car is phenomenal." And then he switched his phone off and then got in the car to go and actually do. It was a complete nonsense. And that, unfortunately, that's how social media influence sometimes works. Not always. You know, there are exceptions, and I've already mentioned Ollie Guns as one. There are exceptions out there. But if somebody's paid you 500, 1,000, 5,000 pounds to go and look at a machine, are you really going to pitch up and say, yes, I've been paid handsomely by, for example, JCB. JCB don't really pay influencers actually, but I've been paid handsomely to review this JCB, and guess what? It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It may well be, but where's the credibility if you know they've been paid for it? Footy, who has just come out of the doctors, oddly enough, he was having his foot looked at because he's for Dirtworks #1 over on Instagram. Just joined us. Good morning to you. Well said, Mark. Look forward to the article. I will do my level best. Let's have a look. Steve Williamson says there's an honest review coming soon on this X series, and it's going to be a proper review. I look forward to seeing that. If you're doing it on video, Steve, I'm just going to say this. I will. My airwaves are your airwaves. I'm going to say good morning to Neil Rutter, Gorilla Drones, who's just joined us over on Instagram as well. If you want to produce a video and you are happy for us to do so, I will gladly share your video right here on this show, so that plenty of people get to see it. Let's have a look. There you are. For you to be able to review correctly, you need to get on multiple machines over a period of time. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And listen, I do actually think, I genuinely do believe this. There will be aspects of all of the machines that you might really like. For example, well, let's do the obvious. If you're a big guy and you've got an excavator and the cab is a bit snug and the seat isn't particularly comfortable, you're going to notice that. If a smaller person, possibly a female, gets on that machine, that might be absolutely fine. That they might actually be delighted with that. All of that needs to be taken into account, and it isn't. Thank you very much, Gary. Safe travels to Paris. I have to say, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not the world's biggest Paris fan, although apparently we are going to have a bit of snow while we're there, which kind of improves things. What I would say is I'm looking forward to the train journey. Got the laptop ready. I've got me note cards and me pen and paper, and I'm going to be well happy. Luke Harney says, oh my goodness, so late, got caught on calls, so often the case. Kerry Jones, good morning, Kerry. I know I'm very late, but we used to have a Merlo would run rings around the others. There you are. Footy says, are you going to have a snowball fight in France tomorrow? I really hope so. I really, really hope so. I'd love to get there and find that it's a complete whiteout and we get to have a bit of a play in the snow. And we're actually staying in a hotel right beside, very, very close to the Eiffel Tower. Unfortunately, I've got this idea in my head of filming a video there, but I think most of the time we're going to be free to do that. It'll be dark out. That may or may not happen. I'll keep you posted. Mick Norton says, many of today's ticketed seat warmers really get their asses out of their heated seats to undertake the manufacturer's requirements on servicing maintenance of the quick hitch. Yeah, which is kind of a bitter irony if you think the reason that we have semi and fully automatic quick hitches is because operators didn't like to get out of the cab and bang pins in and take pins out and that kind of thing. And yet here we are just a few years later, and they're still finding a reason to not look after things. Steve Williamson says, the 25 years I've been on site, JCB dominated the telehandler sector. I've not seen one Merlo on a building site. One I used was on a farm. They are about. Merlo is a weird one, and if anybody from Merlo is watching, I apologise for what I'm about to say, but speak as you find. Merlo arrived, I can't actually remember, but Merlo arrived on the scene, and I think partly due to the colour and the branding, it was very exciting, and they looked like they were destined for great things, and everyone was getting awfully excited about it. And then they seemed to kind of fade away. And then they seem to kind of fade back, and they're fading back as I would say exactly the same thing. And I love the brand. Venieri, the Italian backhoe loader brand, exactly the same thing. Venieri, at one point, big, exciting, fantastic. And then they faded away. And then they faded back. I don't know whether it's a fashion thing. I honestly don't know. Dan Cullen says, safe travels. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Mick Norton with sound advice. Don't eat French yellow snow. I make a point of not eating yellow snow, regardless of where I am in the world. Steve Williamson says exactly, Mark. The reason we have shit health and safety is due to inexperienced idiots or just haven't been trained properly. Yeah, very true. Very true. Right, people. We've hit a bit of a lull. There's no more comments. I'm going to bid you a fond adieu. See, I did have more French up my sleeve. I'm going to bid you a fond adieu because I need to go and catch a train. I've also got to finish packing as well, which I should have done last night, but I didn't. No show tomorrow, no show Friday. I'll be back on Monday to tell you all about France and how wonderful it was, or otherwise. Mick Norton says, other than Merlo, how many telescopic handler manufacturers have an automatic, electronic, safe working load recognition of their ancillaries? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I have a feeling, Mick, that you do know the answer to that. Please feel free to share it. That's going to be it. It's nearly an hour. I need to catch a train. People, it's been an absolute blast. Keep the chat going on the WhatsApp group. Keep me entertained on my travels over to Gay Paris and back again. And I'll see you again on Monday. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic couple of days. Have a great weekend. I'll see you all very soon. All the best.